My father was a soldier. He jumped out of airplanes. He lived to serve.
People would turn to me and say, you know, your dad was a murderer. My immediate reaction used to be, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I'd find myself thinking, was he? Well, who was he really?
It was like a search for my father in which I was like a detective. I'm looking, probing, sort of sifting through old photographs, and also particularly memories of people that I had met over the years. I mean, who was that man? Not just my father, but who was that guest? Who was that lady who would come, who I later would see in the newspapers? And you've got a sense that there was always an underneath. There's the life we're living, or the life he's living, but there's an underneath. And you have to take everything kind of on trust and faith and hope, really, that what's being done is the right thing.
I am against assassination. I think it's counterproductive, and I've issued directives against it.
By the time I got there in 1969, it felt much more like an assassination program.
When I first set off to make the film, I thought, well, it's a film about my father. And I'll sort of delve into what the policies were and why did he fight the Nazis in one way and why did he fight the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese in another way. And then I thought, well, I'll interview my mother. Maybe she'll have something to say. And everything changed after I interviewed her for the first time because she told all the life, like the blood, the pulse of the family was sort of coursing through this life that looks very dry. But it was very interesting. A couple of days after I interviewed her, I said, well, it went really well, but I'd like to do a little bit more. And she said, I've been thinking the same thing. I think I can get under things. There's a darker side. I'd like to probe that. I think it's fair to do that. So I thought, whoa, I have like a partner in making a movie. And sometimes I thought it was kind of crazy that, what is it? It's some interviews with some old friends, making a film about your dad, with your mom, and a piece of paper and some old pictures. It's like, can this even work? But I slowly thought that if I can pull out, in a sense, performances out of people like my mother, then maybe there's something here. Well, I was kind of scared at first that I'd have to do something personal. I almost hid behind the shield of, well, it's a film about my father and he was a CIA and special operations. And then my producer, David Johnson, was always like, you can go further. It's about your story and his story. And I'd been trained in my growing up with my father was, it's not about me. There's nothing here. Or there may be something here, but it's not for you to see. So I fought a lot, just defensively, like a pitched battle to like not get inside myself until I realized there's no movie unless I go through that wall. And it was the same thing with my mother, and she kind of led me down that path. And we together sort of went to the dark side and examined sort of what that all is about. Well, the movie really is a morality tale. It's about Americans and the American character. Here's a guy that you ask him to do the toughest, dirtiest assignments imaginable. From when he's 24 years old, you jump behind enemy lines. You go do this impossible mission where, frankly, they asked my father in the early days, paratrooping, they'd say, well, Colby's only had 1 or 2 jumps. You know, he hasn't really trained for this, and the team really isn't very well trained. They said, you know, most of them die anyway. So they might break a leg if we do too many training jumps. Just throw them in there. Well, that's the first task. And then he took on assignments in Vietnam and elsewhere. And the sad part is that there are people now, tonight, women and men, you know, taking off by the hundreds into Yemen, Sudan, all sorts of places. And so there are a lot of Bill Colbys now. The thing that I worry about is, are we going to support them when things get rough?
My father lived in a world of secrets, always watching, listening, his eye on the door. By the time I turned 30, I came to understand the man that nobody knew. Or at least I thought I did.